Marcus Chen had worked night security at Hartfield Industries for 9 years. 9 years of walking empty hallways under fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects. 9 years of checking locks, monitoring cameras, writing incident reports that no one read. 9 years of being invisible, but there was one night, one choice, that changed everything, and it took 9 years for him to understand why. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day, when most people were out celebrating love. Marcus was starting his shift at 6 p.m., the same way he had for nearly a decade. He kissed his daughter Emily goodbye at their small apartment, reminded her to finish her homework, and drove his 15-year-old Honda Civic to the Hartfield Industries campus. The building was a glass and steel monument to corporate success, 30 stories of ambition and quarterly earnings. Marcus worked in the shadow of all that success, making sure the lights stayed on and the doors stayed locked. He was 43 years old. He'd raised Emily alone since she was 5, when his wife Claire decided that motherhood and marriage weren't compatible with the life she wanted to live. She left on a Tuesday morning while Emily was at kindergarten. Marcus came home from his day job at a warehouse to find half the closet empty and a note on the kitchen table. The note said she was sorry. It said she wasn't built for this. It said she'd send money when she could. She never did. Marcus never heard from her again, so he became both parents. He worked security at night because it paid better than warehouse work, and the hours meant he could be home when Emily woke up for school. He'd sleep from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., pick her up at 3, help with homework, make dinner, tuck her in, then head back to Hartfield Industries for another 12-hour shift. It wasn't a life. It was a system. A machine built on sacrifice that ran on 4 hours of sleep and the love he had for his daughter. Emily was worth every hour. She was bright and curious, with her mother's dark hair and Marcus's serious eyes. She loved science and books and asked questions about everything. Why did plants need sunlight? How did airplanes stay up? What made people good or bad? Marcus answered every question as best he could, even when he was exhausted, even when he didn't know the answers. Being present for her mattered more than being perfect. The executive parking lot was nearly empty that Valentine's night. Most of the senior staff had left early for dinner reservations and romantic gestures. Marcus did his first perimeter check at 6:30, walking the lot with his flashlight, checking for anything unusual. That's when he saw the black Mercedes S-Class in the far corner, engine running, exhaust creating small clouds in the cold February air. He approached carefully. Security training taught you to be cautious with running vehicles in parking lots. Could be a getaway car, could be someone sleeping rough, could be nothing. As he got closer, he recognized the license plate, HRTFLD1, Victoria Hartfield's car, the CEO herself. Marcus had seen Victoria Hartfield in person maybe a dozen times in 9 years. She was a legend in the business world, a woman who'd built Hartfield Industries from a small manufacturing company into a multinational corporation. She was on magazine covers. She gave keynote speeches at conferences. She was untouchable, unreachable, the kind of person who existed in a completely different universe from night security guards. He knocked on the window. No response. He knocked harder. Still nothing. He tried the door, unlocked. And there she was, Victoria Hartfield, the woman whose face appeared on the cover of Forbes and Fortune, slumped in the driver's seat, unconscious. The car reeked of whiskey. Her designer dress was twisted awkwardly. Her heels had fallen off her feet. Keys were in the ignition. The car was in park, but the engine was running. She could have frozen to death. She could have shifted into drive in her stupor. She could have died right there in her own parking lot. Marcus had maybe 30 seconds to decide what to do. He could call 911, but that meant police, ambulance, public record. Her name would be in the system. Driving drunk, even if she hadn't actually driven anywhere, would mean arrest, court, public scandal. He could call building management, But they'd call the board of directors, and who knows what they'd do with this information. He could take a photo and sell it to TMZ for probably $50,000, enough to change his life, enough to give Emily things she deserved. He could walk away and pretend he never saw anything, or he could do something else entirely. He reached in and turned off the engine. He checked her pulse, strong and steady. She was breathing normally, just drunk, very drunk. He looked at her phone on the passenger seat. No password. This was 2015, before everyone locked everything. He scrolled to home in her contacts and called it. No answer. He tried assistant. Straight to voicemail. He tried driver. The line had been disconnected. Victoria Hartfield was one of the most powerful people in the city, and in this moment she was completely alone. Marcus made a choice. He picked her up. She was lighter than he expected, maybe 115 pounds, and carried her to his Honda. He laid her across the back seat, buckled her in as best he could, grabbed her purse and phone, locked her Mercedes, and drove to the address listed under home in her phone. A penthouse in the city's most expensive building. 40-minute drive through Valentine's Day traffic. She didn't wake up during the drive, didn't stir when he carried her through the lobby. The doorman recognized her and buzzed them up without questions, assuming Marcus was a driver or assistant. Didn't move when Marcus found her bedroom, laid her on her bed, took off her jewelry so she wouldn't wake up tangled in necklaces, covered her with a blanket, put a glass of water and aspirin on the nightstand, and let himself out. He drove back to Hartfield Industries, parked his Honda, walked to the executive lot, got in Victoria's Mercedes, keys still in the ignition, and parked it in her designated spot. He wiped down the steering wheel and door handles with his security uniform sleeve, erasing any evidence he'd been inside. Then he returned to his station and wrote in the incident log, "Perimeter check complete. No incidents to report." The whole thing took 90 minutes. He finished his shift like normal, went home at 6 a.m., kissed Emily good morning when she woke up for school, made her breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, asked about her science project on volcanoes, helped her glue cotton balls onto a poster board to look like steam. Then he went to bed and slept his usual 4 hours before picking her up from school. If you're a single dad watching from anywhere in the world, comment below and tell me what city you're calling home. Let's see how far this community reaches. The next morning, Victoria Hartfield came to work at 7 a.m. like nothing had happened. Marcus saw her on the security cameras, walking through the lobby in a fresh suit, heels clicking on marble, phone to her ear. She looked perfect, untouchable, completely in control. He wondered if she even remembered the night before. He wondered if she knew what he'd done. She never said anything, not that day, not that week, not that month. Marcus went back to his routine. Wake up at 2 p.m. Pick up Emily from school. Help with homework, fractions, spelling tests, book reports. Make dinner, usually something simple, pasta or chicken, whatever was on sale. Eat together at their small kitchen table while Emily told him about her day. Who was friends with who? What they learned in science, what game they played at recess. Marcus listened to every word like it was the most important information in the world. Because to him, it was. Then he'd tuck her in at 8 p.m., read her a chapter from whatever book they were working through. They'd gone through Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Chronicles of Narnia. Emily loved stories about ordinary people discovering they were extraordinary. Marcus understood why. Every kid wants to believe they're special, that they matter, that their life has meaning beyond homework and chores. After she fell asleep, he'd shower, change into his uniform, and drive to Hartfield Industries for his shift. 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. 12 hours of walking floors, checking doors, monitoring screens. Most nights were quiet. Occasionally there'd be something, a janitor setting off a motion sensor, a forgotten laptop beeping in an empty office, a drunk executive working late who needed an escort to their car. But mostly it was just Marcus and the building, the fluorescent lights and the hum of HVAC systems keeping everything at exactly 72 degrees. He saw Victoria Hartfield on the cameras sometimes. She worked late often, sometimes until midnight or 1 a.m. He'd watch her on the monitor, a tiny figure on a tiny screen, moving through her office, pacing while on phone calls, sitting at her desk surrounded by documents. She never looked at the cameras, never acknowledged that anyone might be watching. Marcus wondered sometimes if she knew it had been him that night. The doorman must have told her someone carried her upstairs. The lobby would have cameras. She could have reviewed the footage if she wanted, but she never said anything, never came to his security station, never sent a message through management, nothing. He told himself it didn't matter. He hadn't done it for recognition. He'd done it because leaving someone passed out drunk in a running car in February seemed like a good way to let someone die. And Marcus didn't let people die if he could help it. That's not who he was. The years passed. Emily grew up in front of his eyes. She went from elementary school to middle school. She got braces. She joined the soccer team. She discovered she was good at math, really good. The kind of good where teachers started talking about advanced placement and college scholarships. Marcus encouraged all of it. He went to every soccer game he could make between sleep and work. He helped her study for tests, even when the material was beyond what he remembered from his own mediocre education. He told her she could be anything she wanted. Doctor, engineer, scientist, whatever. The world was open to her. Emily never complained about their small apartment or second-hand clothes. She never asked why other kids had newer phones or went on fancy vacations. She seemed to understand, even without being told explicitly, that her father was giving her everything he had, that the reason he was always tired, always working, always scraping by, was because every dollar and every minute went to making sure she had a chance at something better. When Emily was 12, she started asking about her mother. Not accusatory questions, just curious ones. What was she like? Why did she leave? Does she ever think about us? Marcus answered honestly but gently. Her mother wasn't a bad person, just someone who couldn't handle the responsibility of family. Some people are built for it, some aren't. It doesn't mean she didn't love you. It just means she loved the idea of freedom more. Emily processed this quietly. Then she said something that broke Marcus's heart and put it back together at the same time. I'm glad I got you instead of her. Marcus kept working nights at Hartfield Industries. 9 years became routine. The job was mindless but stable. The pay covered rent, food, Emily's expenses. The overnight shift meant he could parent during the day. It worked. It wasn't a career, wasn't prestigious, wasn't going to make him rich or famous. But it worked. He watched the company grow through the security cameras. New hires flooding in, new departments forming, the building expanding, floors being renovated, more glass and steel and modern design. Victoria Hartfield's company was thriving. Marcus was happy for her in an abstract way. She'd built something impressive. She employed thousands of people. She created value and jobs and economic growth. Good for her. She walked past his security station hundreds of times over the years. Sometimes she was alone, sometimes with executives or assistants. She never made eye contact, never nodded, never acknowledged his existence. And Marcus never brought up that night. What was he going to say? Hey, remember when I saved your life and protected your reputation? That wasn't why he'd done it. He'd done it because it was the right thing to do. Because she was a human being in trouble. Because he'd want someone to do the same for his daughter if she ever needed help. Have you ever done something good and never gotten credit for it? Comment below. Tell me about the time your character mattered more than recognition. When Emily turned 14, things changed. She started getting tired. Not normal teenage fatigue. Something different, something wrong. She'd come home from school and sleep for hours. She'd wake up groggy and disoriented. She started getting nosebleeds, sudden, heavy, concerning. Bruises appeared on her arms and legs, dark purple marks that looked worse than the minor bumps that caused them. Marcus took her to the clinic. The doctor ran blood tests, then called them back for more blood tests, then referred them to a specialist, then another specialist. The appointments stacked up. Each one came with more questions, more tests, more worried looks from doctors who tried to hide their concern behind professional composure. The word came on a Thursday afternoon in October. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The oncologist was kind but direct. Emily had cancer, aggressive cancer, the kind that required immediate treatment, chemotherapy, possibly radiation, possibly a bone marrow transplant. The survival rate was good if they acted fast, but the treatment was brutal and expensive, and there were no guarantees. Marcus sat in the consultation room with Emily next to him, holding her hand, while the oncologist explained treatment protocols and survival statistics and side effects. Emily was quiet. Too quiet. She'd always been mature for her age, always understood more than she should have to understand. She squeezed Marcus's hand and asked intelligent questions about treatment timelines and success rates. She was 14 years old, and she was asking about her chances of survival. Marcus wanted to scream. He wanted to punch through walls. He wanted to rage at the universe for targeting his daughter, for making her sick, for threatening to take away the only thing that gave his life meaning. But he sat there calmly, squeezed Emily's hand back, and listened to the oncologist explain how they were going to fight this. The treatment started immediately. Emily began chemotherapy the following week. The poison they pumped into her body to kill the cancer cells made her violently ill. She vomited constantly. She couldn't eat. She lost weight so fast that Marcus could see her bones through her skin. Her hair fell out in clumps, first gradually, then all at once. She woke up one morning with her pillow covered in dark strands and just stared at it without crying. She was too exhausted to cry. Marcus rearranged his entire life around Emily's treatment. He talked to his supervisor at Hartfield Industries and explained the situation. They were surprisingly accommodating. They let him switch to a flexible schedule. He could work partial shifts, make up hours when he could, take time off for Emily's appointments. It was the kind of corporate kindness that Marcus hadn't expected. Maybe his 9 years of reliable service had earned him some goodwill. He spent his days at the hospital. Emily had chemotherapy sessions that lasted hours. Marcus sat next to her the whole time, watching poison drip into her veins through an IV, watching her small body fight against medicine that was supposed to save her. He read to her when she could stay awake. He held her hand when the nausea got bad. He cleaned up when she got sick. He slept in the chair next to her bed when she had to stay overnight for observation. The medical bills started arriving. Even with insurance, cancer treatment was astronomically expensive. Marcus had basic coverage through Hartfield Industries, the kind that handled routine care but buckled under catastrophic illness. Co-pays, deductibles, medications that cost thousands of dollars, hospital stays, specialist consultations. The numbers grew faster than Marcus could process them. He sold everything that wasn't essential. His old laptop, his television, his car. He bought a cheaper, older one that barely ran, but cost less. He took extra security shifts whenever Emily was stable enough. He applied for medical payment plans and charity care programs. He started a GoFundMe campaign with a photo of Emily smiling before she got sick, before she lost her hair and her weight and her color. Strangers donated. Small amounts mostly, $20 here, $50 there. It added up to $8,000. It wasn't even a dent in what they owed. The oncologist recommended a treatment protocol after 3 months of standard chemotherapy. Emily was responding, but slowly. The cancer was retreating, but not fast enough. There was an experimental protocol, newer drugs, more targeted therapy, better success rates for her specific type of leukemia. The survival rate jumped from 60% to nearly 90%, 30 percentage points. The difference between his daughter living and dying. The insurance company denied it. The treatment was classified as experimental, investigational, not covered under policy terms. The denial letter was 2 pages long and used phrases like "not medically necessary" and "insufficient evidence of efficacy." Marcus read it 3 times, trying to understand how 30 percentage points of increased survival could be classified as unnecessary. The experimental protocol cost $300,000. Marcus had $4,000 in savings after selling everything he could sell. He appealed the insurance denial. He wrote letters. He called the insurance company and spent hours on hold listening to instrumental music while representatives told him they understood his frustration, but policy was policy. He had doctors write letters of medical necessity. He had Emily's oncologist personally call the insurance medical review board. Everything was denied. Marcus started looking into medical loans. The interest rates were predatory, 18%, 22%, rates that would cripple him financially for the rest of his life. And even with those rates, no one would lend him $300,000. He didn't have collateral. He didn't have assets. He had a 14-year-old Honda Civic and an apartment full of furniture from thrift stores. He applied for medical grants. He contacted charitable foundations. He reached out to non-profit organizations that helped families with catastrophic medical expenses. He got approved for $12,000 in assistance from a children's cancer foundation. Another charity sent $5,000. It helped. It wasn't enough. He was still more than $270,000 short. Emily continued with the standard chemotherapy. She was brave in ways that destroyed Marcus. She never complained. She never asked why this was happening to her. She endured every needle stick, every wave of nausea, every hospital stay with quiet dignity. She worried about Marcus more than herself. She told him she was okay, that he should go home and sleep, that he didn't need to stay with her every minute. But Marcus stayed. He couldn't not stay. The idea of his daughter fighting for her life alone in a hospital room while he was somewhere else was unbearable. So he existed on coffee and adrenaline, and whatever sleep he could steal in chairs designed to prevent sleeping. He worked his security shifts whenever Emily was stable. He showered in hospital bathrooms. He ate cafeteria food that tasted like cardboard. His entire world shrank to hospital rooms and treatment schedules and blood counts and cancer markers. The oncologist was honest with him after 6 months. Emily was fighting. Her body was responding to treatment. But the cancer was aggressive. The standard protocol was working, but it wasn't enough. Without the experimental treatment, they were looking at maybe 60% survival. With it, 90%. Those 30 percentage points haunted Marcus. 60% meant a 40% chance his daughter would die. 90% meant a 10% chance. The math was brutal and simple. For single dads out there grinding through impossible schedules to be present for your kids, what city are you watching from? Comment below. You're not alone in this fight. Marcus started breaking, not all at once, gradually, little cracks that spread until the whole structure was unstable. He'd find himself crying in hospital bathrooms at 3 a.m. He'd sit in his car before shifts and stare at nothing for 20 minutes. He'd lie awake during the few hours he tried to sleep and run the numbers over and over, trying to find some mathematical solution to an impossible problem. He thought about that night 9 years ago, finding Victoria Hartfield drunk in her car. The choice he'd made. He could have taken a photo, could have sold it for $50,000, maybe more. It wouldn't have been enough for Emily's treatment, but it would have been something. A down payment on medical loans, enough to buy them time. He didn't regret his choice. He'd done the right thing, but there was a bitter irony in it. He'd saved someone's reputation and career. He'd protected someone powerful. And now, when his own daughter needed saving, he was powerless. The universe didn't reward good behavior. It didn't keep score. It didn't care that Marcus was a good man who'd made good choices. It was December when Marcus hit bottom. Emily had been in treatment for 14 months. She'd lost her hair 3 times as it tried to grow back between chemo cycles. She'd spent more than half of that time in the hospital. She was pale and thin and exhausted in ways that made her look ancient. Her childhood was being consumed by cancer and poison and hospital rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Marcus sat in the hospital cafeteria one night at 2 a.m., drinking cold coffee that tasted like rust, staring at his phone. He'd been awake for 36 hours straight. Emily was sleeping upstairs, her body ravaged by chemicals that were trying to save her life by nearly destroying it. The cafeteria was nearly empty, a few nurses on break, a doctor reviewing charts, a family clustered around a table looking shell-shocked. He felt something break inside him, not his will to fight, something deeper. His belief that doing the right thing mattered, his faith that the universe had any justice in it, his conviction that good people were rewarded and bad people were punished, and everything worked out in the end if you just tried hard enough. He'd worked hard his entire life. He'd been a good father. He'd sacrificed everything for his daughter. He'd made the right choices even when no one was watching. He'd protected someone powerful when he could have exploited them. He'd been honest and decent and responsible. And here he was, watching his daughter die because he couldn't afford to save her. Marcus put his head in his hands and cried in a hospital cafeteria at 2 in the morning. Not quiet tears. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere below your ribs. The kind that empties you out completely. The kind that makes sounds you don't recognize as coming from yourself. He cried for Emily, for the childhood she was losing, for the life she might not get to live. He cried for himself, for the failure he felt, for the powerlessness that consumed him. He cried for 9 years of working nights and raising a daughter alone and doing everything right and ending up here anyway. He didn't hear someone sit down across from him. Didn't notice until she spoke. Mr. Chen. He looked up, wiping his face with his sleeve, trying to pull himself together. Victoria Hartfield was sitting across from him, dressed in an elegant wool coat, her hair pulled back in a simple style, her face showing something he'd never seen in 9 years of watching her on security cameras. Concern. Real, unguarded, human concern. Ms. Hartfield. His voice came out rough, broken. I'm sorry, I'm not usually. I know about Emily, she said quietly. I know about the leukemia. I know about the treatment your insurance denied. I know you've been fighting for over a year. I know you're drowning. Marcus stared at her. How did she know? How did she know any of this? Victoria reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. She placed it on the table between them, with a gesture that was both casual and profound. This is a check for $400,000. It will cover the experimental treatment Emily needs and anything else that comes up during her care. Consider it a grant from the Hartfield Foundation. No repayment required, no strings attached. Marcus looked at the envelope like it was a hallucination, like it might disappear if he reached for it. I don't understand. Victoria folded her hands on the table. Her nails were manicured but simple. She wore a wedding ring, even though Marcus knew from office gossip that she'd been divorced for years. 9 years ago, she said, you found me passed out drunk in my car in the executive parking lot. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day. Do you remember? Marcus nodded slowly. Of course he remembered. How could he forget? That was the worst night of my life, Victoria continued. My husband had served me divorce papers that morning. My board of directors was plotting to push me out of my own company. I'd built Hartfield Industries from nothing, and they wanted to take it away because I was a woman, and they were threatened. I went to my office that night to work, to distract myself. I ended up drinking a bottle of whiskey I kept in my desk drawer. I made it as far as the parking lot before I blacked out. She paused, looking down at her hands. You could have called the police. You could have called the press. One photo of me passed out drunk would have destroyed my career. My board would have used it as evidence I was unfit to lead. I would have lost everything. Or you could have done nothing and let me freeze to death or crash my car. Instead, you drove me home. You put me to bed safely. You protected my reputation. You protected my life. And you never told a soul. If you've ever done something good and never gotten credit for it, comment below. Tell me about the time your character mattered more than recognition. I didn't do it for credit, Marcus said quietly. I know, Victoria replied. That's exactly why I've never forgotten it. The doorman told me the next morning that someone had carried me upstairs. I reviewed the lobby security footage. I saw you. I reviewed the Hartfield Industries parking lot cameras. I saw everything you did, how carefully you handled me, how you made sure I was safe, how you returned my car and erased every trace that you'd been involved. You had leverage over me that could have changed your entire life. Blackmail material worth millions, and you threw it away because using it would have hurt me. She leaned forward. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people have access to me every single day who see me as a transaction? A connection, a stepping stone, a means to an end. You had power over me, real power, the kind that destroys careers, and you chose not to use it. That kind of character is something I've only seen once in my entire life. In you. Marcus felt tears starting again. He tried to blink them away. She was a person. You were a person in trouble. What was I supposed to do? Most people would have done something else, Victoria said gently. Most people would have seen an opportunity. You saw a human being who needed help. That difference matters, Mr. Chen. It matters more than you know. She pushed the envelope closer to him. I wanted to thank you immediately. I wanted to promote you, pay you, give you something that matched what you'd given me. But my lawyers advised against it. Acknowledging what happened meant acknowledging I'd been driving drunk. It exposed the company to liability. It opened me up to blackmail attempts if the story got out. So I stayed silent, but I didn't forget. I've been watching your life, Mr. Chen, not in a creepy way. I asked security to flag if you ever needed anything. I knew about Emily. I knew when she got sick. I knew when your insurance denied her treatment. I've been waiting for the right moment. Why wait? Marcus whispered. Why wait 9 years? Victoria smiled sadly. Because 9 years ago you didn't need me. You were struggling, but you were managing. You had your dignity. You had your system. You were being the father Emily needed. If I'd swooped in then with money and promotions, I would have been taking that dignity away, making you into someone who needed rescuing, making your good deed into a transaction where you got rewarded for being decent. That's not who you are, Mr. Chen. You're not someone who does good things expecting rewards. You're someone who does good things because they're good. That kind of character is precious. I didn't want to corrupt it by making it transactional. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I waited until you truly needed help, until accepting it wouldn't diminish who you are, until the gift could be what it's supposed to be. Gratitude, not payment. Recognition, not transaction. You saved my life when I was drowning. Now your daughter is drowning, and I have the power to save her. This isn't charity, Mr. Chen. This is a debt repaid. Poorly repaid, honestly. You gave me my career, my reputation, my future. I'm just giving your daughter hers. Marcus picked up the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check, $400,000, made out to Marcus Chen. In the memo line, someone had written in careful handwriting, "For Emily, with gratitude and recognition." Emily starts the experimental treatment on Monday, Victoria continued. I've already spoken with her oncologist. Dr. Richardson, right? I've arranged everything. The foundation will cover all costs, treatment, medications, hospital stays, follow-up care, everything. You won't see another medical bill related to Emily's cancer. Ever. That's handled. She stood up, preparing to leave. Marcus stood too, still holding the envelope, still trying to process that this was real. "Miss Hartfield, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "You already said everything 9 years ago when you chose to protect me instead of exploit me. When you saw me at my absolute worst and treated me with dignity anyway. When you had every reason to use my vulnerability against me, and instead you drove me home and put me to bed and asked for nothing. That was the conversation, Mr. Chen. That was you telling me who you are. This is just me responding 9 years later." She turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. I'm creating a new position at Hartfield Industries, Director of Security Operations. It's a day shift position, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Full benefits package, health, dental, vision, the works. The health insurance is our platinum tier. It would have covered Emily's experimental treatment from day one. The salary is $120,000 annually. The position is yours if you want it. You've more than earned it." "I'm just a night security guard," Marcus said, his voice barely working. "No," Victoria said firmly. "You're a man of extraordinary character who's been working beneath his potential for 9 years because you prioritized being a good father over advancing your career. You sacrificed your own professional growth so you could be present for Emily. That's not just admirable, Mr. Chen. That's the kind of character I want leading my security operations. But more than that, you deserve to sleep in your own bed. You deserve to have dinner with your daughter every night. You deserve mornings and weekends and a life that isn't just survival. You've been running on 4 hours of sleep for almost a decade. You deserve better." She reached out and shook his hand. Her grip was firm, professional, but her eyes were warm. "Emily's going to be okay, Mr. Chen. The experimental treatment has a 91% success rate for her type of leukemia. The odds are overwhelmingly in her favor, and you'll be there for all of it. Not exhausted from working all night. Not stealing moments between shifts. Actually there, present. The father you've been trying so hard to be. Know a single dad whose character changed everything. Someone whose integrity created ripples they never saw. Comment their story below and include what city they're from. These stories deserve to be told." Victoria walked to the cafeteria exit, then looked back one more time. "You saved my life when I was drowning, Mr. Chen. I've spent 9 years trying to figure out how to save yours. Thank you for giving me the chance. Thank you for being exactly who you are. The world needs more men like you." Then she was gone. Marcus sat back down, still holding the envelope. Around him, the hospital cafeteria continued its late-night rhythm. Nurses grabbing coffee between rounds, doctors reviewing patient charts, families clustered in worried silence waiting for news. But for Marcus, the world had completely shifted. The crushing weight he'd carried for 14 months, the impossible math of his daughter's survival, the slow suffocation of watching her die while being powerless to stop it, all of it lifted. Emily would live. The experimental treatment would work. He knew it in his bones. The odds were 91%. 91% meant Emily would survive, would grow up, would get to be a teenager, and then an adult, and then whatever she wanted to be. And he'd get to be there for all of it. Not sleeping in chairs after working all night. Not stealing moments between shifts. Actually there. Present. Awake. The father he'd been desperately trying to be for 9 years. He opened the envelope again and looked at the check. $400,000. More money than he'd seen in his entire life. Money that represented Emily's survival. Money that represented 9 years of silence finally breaking. Money that represented Victoria Hartfield keeping a ledger he didn't even know existed. Marcus went back upstairs to Emily's room. She was sleeping, her small body barely making a shape under the hospital blankets. Her head was wrapped in a purple scarf covering her baldness. Her face was pale but peaceful. An IV dripped fluids into her arm, Monitors beeped softly, tracking her heart rate and oxygen levels. She looked fragile. She looked strong. She looked like his whole world. Marcus sat down in the chair next to her bed, the chair he'd slept in hundreds of times, and took her hand gently so he wouldn't wake her. Her fingers were thin and cold. He warmed them with his own hands. "We're going to be okay, sweetheart," he whispered. "Everything's going to be okay. You're going to get the best treatment. You're going to beat this. And I'm going to be here for all of it. Not tired, not working all the time. Just here, with you, I promise." Emily stirred slightly but didn't wake. Marcus sat there holding her hand, watching her breathe, feeling something that had been broken inside him for months, finally starting to heal. Not hope, something more solid than hope. Certainty. The certainty that they were going to make it, that Emily would survive, that the nightmare was ending. He thought about Victoria Hartfield, about the choice he'd made 9 years ago in a parking lot on Valentine's Day, about driving her home and asking for nothing, about doing the right thing when no one was watching, about being the kind of person who protects people instead of exploiting them. He'd thought it didn't matter. He'd thought the universe didn't keep score. He'd thought good deeds disappeared into the void, and only suckers expected anything in return. He'd been wrong. The experimental treatment started the following Monday. Emily was nervous, but brave. The new protocol involved different medications, more targeted therapy, drugs designed specifically for her type of leukemia. The side effects were different too, less nausea, less exhaustion, more manageable. Emily responded almost immediately. Her blood counts improved within 2 weeks. The cancer markers in her blood started dropping. The oncologist used words like remarkable and exactly what we hoped for. Marcus took the position as Director of Security Operations at Hartfield Industries. He started the following month after Emily's treatment was well underway and stable. Working days felt surreal. He woke up in the morning like normal people. He had breakfast with Emily, real breakfast, not rushed meals between sleep and shifts. He commuted to Hartfield Industries during daylight hours. He worked in an office instead of walking empty hallways. He had colleagues, meetings, projects. He made decisions about security protocols and staffing and technology upgrades. The salary was more than double what he'd made as night security. The health insurance was comprehensive, platinum tier, like Victoria had said. Emily's ongoing treatment was fully covered. Every medication, every hospital visit, every scan and test and consultation. Marcus didn't see a single medical bill. The foundation handled everything. He slept in his own bed every night, 8 hours. Real sleep, not the fractured 4-hour blocks he'd survived on for years. He had energy, he had time, he had a life that extended beyond work and Emily's illness. He could breathe. Emily's treatment continued for 18 months total. The experimental protocol worked exactly as the oncologist had predicted. The cancer went into remission after 4 months. They continued treatment to make sure it didn't come back. Emily's hair grew back, thicker than before, which she found hilarious. Her energy returned. Her color came back. She started looking like herself again instead of a ghost. The oncologist declared her in complete remission in June. No cancer detected in her blood, no abnormal cells in her bone marrow, clean scans. They'd schedule regular checkups for the next 5 years to monitor for any recurrence, but all indications were that Emily had beaten it. She was cured. Emily turned 16 that summer. Marcus threw her a party at their new apartment, a bigger place, 2 bedrooms, in a better neighborhood. Emily invited friends from school, kids Marcus hadn't met because he'd been too consumed with her treatment to engage with her social life. They ate pizza and cake and made noise and left the place a mess. Marcus had never been happier about a mess in his life. Emily started her junior year of high school that fall. She was behind academically from missing so much school during treatment, but she caught up fast. She was still brilliant at math, still curious about science, still asked questions about everything. She wanted to study medicine, she told Marcus. She wanted to be an oncologist. She wanted to help other kids the way she'd been helped. Marcus encouraged all of it. He helped her study. He drove her to SAT prep classes. He visited colleges with her on weekends. They toured campuses and sat in on lectures and talked about what she wanted from her education, from her life, from her future. Emily wanted to matter. She wanted to help people. She wanted to turn her suffering into something meaningful. For single dads raising daughters who are smarter and stronger than you ever imagined, what city are you in? Comment below. Let's celebrate these incredible young women. Marcus and Victoria Hartfield developed a friendship over the years. Not a close friendship. Their lives operated in very different spheres, but a real one built on mutual respect and shared history. They had lunch once a month, usually at a quiet restaurant downtown. They didn't talk much about that night 9 years ago. There wasn't much to say. The debt had been acknowledged and repaid. The ledger was balanced. Instead, they talked about Emily's progress, about her college applications, about Marcus's work. Victoria asked his opinion on security issues at the company. Marcus gave her honest assessments. She listened. Sometimes she implemented his suggestions. Sometimes she didn't. It was a normal professional relationship except for the underlying truth that they both knew. They'd saved each other's lives. Not in the dramatic Hollywood sense, in the quieter, more profound sense of being there when it mattered most. The Hartfield Foundation grew over the years. It helped dozens of families, then hundreds. Every family facing catastrophic medical expenses for a child's treatment. Every family drowning in bills and insurance denials and impossible choices. The foundation covered costs, connected families with resources, fought insurance companies when needed. It became Victoria's legacy, the thing she was most proud of. Every recipient received a letter explaining the foundation's origin. It didn't name Marcus specifically, but it told the story. The foundation existed because one man chose character over opportunity, because one person did the right thing when no one was watching, because integrity matters and the universe sometimes remembers. Marcus read one of those letters once. Victoria showed it to him during one of their monthly lunches. The letter went to a family in Boston whose daughter had neuroblastoma. The experimental treatment cost $500,000. The insurance denied it. The foundation covered it. The letter explained that someone had once protected someone powerful when they didn't have to, and that act of character had created ripples that saved lives years later. "Do they know it was me?" Marcus asked. "No," Victoria said. "The foundation maintains anonymity for donors and inspiration sources. But they know the principle. They know their daughter is alive because someone they'll never meet did the right thing once. That knowledge matters. It gives people faith that goodness exists." Marcus thought about that, about his choice in a parking lot creating waves that saved children he'd never meet, about character having consequences that extended far beyond the immediate moment, about doing good when no one's watching mattering more than he'd ever imagined. Emily graduated from high school with honors. She got accepted to several prestigious universities. She chose the one with the best pre-med program and the most comprehensive oncology research. She wanted to be where the cutting edge happened. She wanted to learn from the people developing the treatments that had saved her life. Marcus helped her move into her dorm room in August. They drove 6 hours to the university, loaded down with clothes and books and dorm supplies. Marcus set up her desk, assembled her bookshelf, made her bed with the sheets they'd bought together. Emily was excited and nervous. This was her life beginning, her future unfolding, the life she'd almost lost, getting to actually happen. Before Marcus left, Emily hugged him tight. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for never giving up, for being there every single day, for being the best dad anyone could ask for." Marcus held her, feeling her alive and healthy and strong in his arms. "You make it easy, Em. You make everything worth it." "I'm going to make you proud," she said. "You already have," he replied. "Every single day of your life you've made me proud." He drove home alone, the car feeling empty without Emily's presence. He cried a little on the highway, not from sadness but from the overwhelming emotion of having made it, of having survived the impossible years, of having raised a daughter who was alive and healthy and brilliant and kind, of having done something right. Marcus is 52 now. He's still Director of Security Operations at Hartfield Industries, though he's been promoted twice over the years. He oversees security for multiple company facilities. He trains new security staff. He implements protocols and systems. It's good work, important work. He's good at it. Emily is in her second year of medical school. She's specializing in pediatric oncology, exactly as she planned. She's top of her class. She volunteers at children's hospitals on weekends. She wants to be the kind of doctor who sees the whole family, who understands that when a child is sick, everyone suffers. She learned that from watching her father never leave her side during treatment. She calls Marcus every Sunday. They talk for hours about her classes, about interesting cases she's studying, about her life and friends and the future she's building. She tells him about the research she's reading, about new treatments being developed, about advances in cancer therapy that would have seemed like science fiction when she was sick. She's going to be an extraordinary doctor. Marcus knows it. Everyone who meets her knows it. Victoria Hartfield retired from Hartfield Industries 2 years ago. She handed the company over to new leadership, a woman she'd mentored for years, someone who embodied the values Victoria wanted the company to maintain. Victoria now dedicates herself full-time to the Hartfield Foundation. It's become one of the largest medical assistance charities in the country. Hundreds of families receive help every year. Thousands of children get treatments their insurance won't cover. Victoria and Marcus still have lunch once a month. The tradition has continued even after her retirement. They meet at the same quiet restaurant, order the same food, talk about life, and Emily and the families the foundation has helped. They don't talk about that night anymore. It's ancient history, a story that's been told and understood and integrated into who they both are. But sometimes Victoria will mention a family the foundation helped, and Marcus will see the pride in her eyes, the satisfaction of turning her worst moment into something beautiful, the joy of proving that grace can grow from vulnerability, that being saved can teach you how to save others. One lunch, she tells Marcus about a family in Seattle. A single father whose son has leukemia, the same type Emily had. The same experimental treatment needed, the same insurance denial. The foundation covered it. The boy is responding well. 91% odds. His name is David, Victoria says. The father. He works construction, raises his son alone, reminds me of someone. Marcus smiles. Did you tell him the origin story? Of course, he needed to hear it. He needed to know that someone out there understands, that he's not alone, that his sacrifice matters even when no one sees it. What did he say? He cried, Victoria says simply. Then he said he's going to pay it forward someday. When his son is healthy and he has the means, he's going to help another father the way he was helped. That's what the foundation does, Marcus. It doesn't just save children. It shows people that character creates waves, that doing good matters, that the universe keeps a ledger even when we can't see it. Have you seen this kind of ripple effect in your own life? A moment of character that created waves you never expected? Comment below and share your story. What city are you from? Marcus thinks about that night often, not obsessively but regularly. The choice he made in 30 seconds that echoed for 9 years and then changed everything. Finding Victoria Hartfield passed out in her car, deciding to protect her instead of exploit her, driving her home and asking for nothing, being invisible in a way that ended up mattering more than any spotlight could have. He doesn't think of himself as a hero. Heroes make grand gestures and give speeches, and their stories get told in books and movies. Marcus just did what seemed right at the time, what any decent person would do. He saw someone vulnerable and he helped them. That's not heroic. That's just being human. But that's the thing about character. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It doesn't demand recognition or rewards. It just acts quietly and consistently in ways that align with deeply held values. It does the right thing because doing the right thing matters, not because anyone is watching or keeping score. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the universe keeps a ledger anyway. Sometimes grace has a memory. Sometimes the good you do in the dark comes back to you in the light, exactly when you need it most. Sometimes protecting someone when you could have destroyed them creates a bond that transcends normal professional relationships. Sometimes character attracts character, and powerful people remember the powerless people who showed them dignity. Victoria Hartfield spent 9 years building something beautiful out of one man's kindness. She didn't forget because she couldn't forget. When someone shows you who they really are in a moment of vulnerability, when someone protects you instead of exploiting you, when someone asks for nothing and gives everything, you remember. If you're any kind of decent human being, you remember. And if you have power and resources and the means to respond, you do something about it, not immediately, not in a way that diminishes the original act. But when the time is right, when the person who saved you needs saving, you show up. You balance the ledger. You prove that character recognizes character. Marcus Chen worked night security for 9 years. 9 years of being invisible, of checking locks and monitoring cameras and writing reports no one read. 9 years of raising his daughter alone, of sacrifice that went unnoticed and unappreciated by almost everyone. 9 years of being exactly the kind of good man the world overlooks, until the night he stopped being invisible, until the moment his character became impossible to ignore, until Grace arrived with a check and a job and the words he'd never expected to hear. "I've been watching. I've never forgotten. Thank you." That's what makes the difference. Not wealth or status or power or connections or luck or being in the right place at the right time. Character, the kind that does good when no one's watching, the kind that protects instead of exploits, the kind that sacrifices without keeping score, the kind that sees people as people instead of opportunities. That kind of character is magnetic. It attracts the right kind of attention from the right kind of people. It creates debts that decent people feel compelled to repay. It builds relationships based on something deeper than transactions or mutual benefit. It proves that how you treat people in their worst moments reveals who you really are. And sometimes, when you need it most, it saves your life the same way you once saved someone else's. Emily is healthy now. She's thriving. She's going to be a doctor who saves children's lives because someone saved hers. Victoria's running a foundation that helps hundreds of families because someone helped her when she was at her lowest. Marcus is sleeping in his own bed, having dinner with his daughter, living a life instead of just surviving. And somewhere, in a hospital or a parking lot or a moment of crisis, someone else is making a choice, choosing to protect instead of exploit, choosing character over opportunity, choosing to do the right thing when no one is watching, being the kind of person who makes the world a little less cruel, a little more kind, a little more human. The world keeps a ledger. Not always. Not for everyone. Sometimes terrible people prosper and good people suffer, and there's no justice in any of it. But sometimes character gets recognized exactly when recognition matters most. Sometimes 9 years of silence ends with $400,000 and words that change everything. I've been watching. I've never forgotten. This is the story of Marcus Chen, a night security guard who saved his CEO from trouble, a single father who raised his daughter right, a man who did good when no one was watching, A man whose character created grace he never expected, arriving exactly when he needed it most. After 9 years of saying nothing, she thanked him. And in that thank you was everything. Recognition, respect, proof that character matters, proof that good people see good people, proof that the sacrifices we make in silence are never truly invisible. Someone is always watching, and sometimes that someone has the power to change your life. If this story moved you, comment below. Tell me what city you're watching from. Tell me about a time character mattered in your life or your community. These stories connect us all.